Okay. Is everyone, are you seeing a big purple screen? That look
You're
good?
good.
Thumbs up. Thank you,
Yes.
Sam. Excellent. All right. Feel
Sharing.
free to jump in if at any time something disconnects, let me know. And likewise, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to be here. I am Morgan Roberts. I'm here with BibliU and with my colleague, Sam, and I'll have him introduce himself in a minute. But we're excited to talk with you about our digital solution for content and see how we might be able to make your lives a little bit easier and your students as well. Let's see if this
Great.
will. Okay, so our plan this morning, and we're nothing if we're not adaptable, so we can always make changes. Please feel free to ask questions as we go through this. And we'll talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we do it, who we're helping. And then we will have some time to show you a product demo so you can see the platform and see some of the analytics, which I will tell you is one of my favorite parts. I'm Morgan Roberts. I'm an account executive with BibliU. I'm a former teacher. I have a master's degree in education. It really is my love. So while presenting publicly is not my most favorite thing to do, talking about education definitely is. So that's what brings me here today. I'm from Florida. I am from Connecticut originally, but live in Florida now. And then this is Sam. Sam, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, great to meet those of you who I haven't already met. My name's Sam. I'm based just outside of Chicago. I'm originally from the UK and actually was a student who used BibliU a decade ago, before then becoming an intern here. And then I moved my life across the pond. When I started, we were a company of 6 people, and we're now 250, 200 of which are based in the United States. A lot of them just in Greenville, Texas. And I was actually across your way recently in Pearland. So it's great to be speaking with you all. And if you want some context from a student who lived in a rural area using BibliU, that was me a decade ago, and clearly it's come on a long way since then. But thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. And if the screen took over, if you weren't looking at Sam when he was introducing himself, then I apologize for that. We're both working remotely today. Sam is in Arkansas and I'm in Myrtle Beach. So I'm in a hotel room in Myrtle Beach, and I'm not complaining about the view outside. But bear with us as we both get used to just a different format here. So I want to make sure you're seeing what I'm seeing. So BibliU, we exist for the sole purpose of student success. So we're all here for the same reason. We do this and accomplish this in different ways. So the content delivery is our corner of the world that enables us to help students gain student success. So we do this, and we think that the most important way of doing this is by making materials accessible, easily accessible, and affordable. Because if students can't afford the materials, then they're not going to have them. And if they don't have them, they're not going to be as successful. We think this should all be happening on day one, on that first day of school, to be set up and ready for success right away. So some of the students that we serve, we work with as many different students as you are working with. So whether it's dual enrollment, students that are coming right out of high school and they already have a career path, maybe a 2-year school for an associate's degree, maybe going right into a 4-year school. We're working with those students, as well as workforce students. I'm actually in Myrtle Beach right now at a conference specifically for workforce readiness. This is a big topic of conversation. I was in Savannah, Georgia earlier this week for another conference specifically on workforce readiness. So how we're addressing the gap in skills for students who are coming for a very specific purpose and reason. It's a certification, it's a degree. There's very specific training that they're looking to accomplish in a short amount of time. And that changes the way that they interact with their learning materials as well. And then, of course, we have adult learners. So there's a lot of non-traditional students, especially community colleges. So we want to accommodate for their lifestyles and their needs. It could be a mother whose children have gone off to school and she's got some time and she wants to go back for a degree in allied health so that she's able to contribute financially to her family in a sustainable family wage. So we're looking to accommodate those students as well. We've been doing this for a long time. Our history, we go back over a decade. We started as a small startup, and 10, 12 years later, we just acquired our first company, Texas Book Company, which allows us to run your bookstore if that's needed. So it enables us to serve our clients even better. So we'll talk more about that as we go along a little bit. But in that time, in that decade, we have developed even more publisher relationships. So we work with thousands of publishers and have access to millions of titles. We have gotten financial backing. We have won awards. We have hired more people. So we're doing some very exciting things, and we're excited to see how that continues to evolve as the needs evolve. So who we work with a lot of different schools. We work with small schools, large schools, public schools, private schools, 2-year, 4-year, online, hybrid, in person. So our ability to adapt and be flexible is what makes us successful and have the ability to scale. So while we work with quite a few small community colleges in rural areas of the United States, we also provide the digital content for the University of Phoenix, which is 100,000 students. So we can do that. Financial sustainability, we think that this is important to know that the vendors and the businesses that you're working with, you want to know that they're financially viable. This is important in today's market. So like I said, we've been around for a long time and we are financially stable. Evolving the campus bookstore. So we talked about how we'd acquired Texas Book Company recently, and this was a very strategic decision so that we can help schools with starting with exactly where they are and getting them where they want to go in that process of the campus bookstore. So as an independent bookstore, we can come in and help you run that if you want to. You can continue to run it on your own. So as Sam likes to say, we can provide your digital content alongside your stethoscopes. So all of that we can help take care of. And we'll talk a little bit more about this as well. But the evolution of this, from our standpoint, being able to offer not only the digital content, but also print materials and help run the bookstore, gives us an entire vertical integration. We own the whole process. There's no middleman. Any bookstore that you're working with is outsourcing their digital platform. We own our digital platform. We can run the bookstore. We can provide the books. We can kind of do it all. Why do you care about that? Why is that important? Basically, if you have a problem, we fix it. So you're not going out to try to, whether it's the publisher or you've lost an access code or, something is happening with your LMS. There's a lot of different points along the process where things can go awry, and there's a lot of different people that you need to resolve that. Because we have that full vertical integration, and we can source it from beginning to end, we take care of all of those issues. To one point person to resolve that. That also means that because we're not outsourcing to a third-party vendor, we're able to reduce our costs and we can pass those savings along to students. So we typically save students 30 to 50% of the cost over traditional print books. So that's pretty significant. And we do this also by integrating into your LMS. Okay. So the campus store, I know that Alvin College has a campus store. You know it, you love it. You've got people working there that have been part of the community, and this is something that we encourage. We are not here to take over your bookstore. We are here to help you evolve it. So whatever that means and whatever that looks like, that's what we're here to do. So we recognize the campus store. There's definitely a change where it's going from a bookstore to a campus store. As you start to remove those physical books, going towards more of a digital solution, you can repurpose that space. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you could do with the campus bookstore that may or may not include all of your books. So we call it swags and snack. There's still a need for that for sure. The merchandise, Sam was talking about the sunglasses for those of you that were on early. the sunglasses from the School of Promotional Materials, that sort of thing, that all stays. We can certainly do that. And Sam, thank you. I'm noticing with the chat over here, so Sam will be able to acknowledge that. And Sam, jump in if there's something to address as you're reading through the chat. Okay, excellent. So why our partners take action? These are some of the challenges that we've been able to overcome. From a student perspective, this top row is very much student-centric. Textbook costs are too high. We know this. Oftentimes, students are having to wait until their financial aid comes in before they even make it to the bookstore to purchase their materials, which already puts them at a disadvantage if they don't have their materials and they're prepared to start on day one. So we would like to eliminate that. And access, everything needs to be in one place. It needs to be affordable and it needs to be easily accessible. So having things integrated into your LMS system makes it very easy for students to know exactly where they need to go. They log in, and again, Sam will show you a demo on this shortly. But when a student logs into their LMS, their books are there. So it associates, they know who you are, what classes you're in, and what books are associated with that course. It's very simple and everything is right there. When we talk about equitable access, we mean all students. And that is not only a financial divide, but can also be a digital divide with their device. So we've invested quite a bit into our system to be able to work on a cell phone, a laptop, a tablet, a desktop, whatever the case is, Android, Apple, we work on them all, a $49 Kindle Fire from Best Buy. So we don't want that to be a barrier for students to be able to access their learning materials. On the bottom row, this is more faculty centered. So this is, the text adoption process. I mean, let's face it, this can be a nightmare from all different angles for a lot of different reasons. So we have simplified that. We're the mindset of like, let's click a button, let's search for what you need, click a button. Yes, I'd like to reuse this again next year. So we can talk about more of what that looks like, but we've streamlined the process for text adoption. So faculty love that as much as the administration. And having freedom of academic choice. We want faculty to be able to choose the content that they want to be using. We are publisher agnostic, which means we work with thousands of publishers, have access to millions of titles. So we are not coming to you with a menu saying, choose from these books. You come to us and say, this is what we want. We go out and provision it for you. And then the data. So I told you I have a background. My background is in teaching, and the data, I kind of geek out a little bit when it comes to the data, because I think that this is really exciting. It gives us insight into student activity and engagement that we've never had before. So with a print book, you don't know if a student has even purchased the book, let alone opened it or read it or engaged in it in any way. But with the data that we have, it is changing the conversation. It's a great early warning system for students that need a little bit more attention. And it tailors the conversation. If you have two students that are complaining about a grade, and you can see one of them has interacted, engaged, and read significantly, and one of them hasn't cracked the book open, that's a very different conversation that you're going to have with those students. Likewise, if you have a midterm coming up, and you can see that someone hasn't read their book yet, you can have a conversation with them. Maybe you find out that something has happened in their life that requires a little bit of grace and patience and understanding. Or maybe you find out that they just have been busy doing other things and need a little kick in the pants, and maybe they're a little bit lazy. So that, again, is a very different conversation. And the idea being that when you have the data, you can make data-driven decisions. And that's always a good idea. Any questions so far? I don't want to just kind of talk at you. And Sam, thank you for responding to the chat. That's a great place to put your thoughts and questions. I don't mind interruptions. So does anyone have questions at this point? Okay. And if you do, chat away. So the benefits we talk about, the benefits of students is the savings, the cost savings. That's the big one for them. And the simplification, making it easy to find. So having everything integrated into the LMS and having one place to go to get your books, that's key. For the faculty, the freedom of choice, the text adoptions, that process has been simplified as well. I'm trying to think if I've missed anything on this in terms of how this is working. We'll get into the OER a little bit as well, because that's such an important conversation to have for sure. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. But having everything in one place is important. So student perspective, faculty perspective, administration benefit from this from a financial standpoint, because there are very real cost savings involved with simplifying administrative tasks, if nothing else. So not only do the books cost less, the ability to implement them is much more cost effective. So whether it's from a billing standpoint, a tech integration, the text adoptions, all of that makes it easy for. So your CFOs, admin, VPAAs, presidents, provosts, from a financial standpoint, there's a lot of benefits for that. And of course, their students and faculty are happy. So priority number one, right? So equitable access, we talk about, and different companies will address this in different ways. We talk about equitable access because we really want all students to have access to affordable learning materials. This is really important. We can do this in many different ways, like I said earlier, we want to meet you exactly where you are and help you get to where you go. So it's no different than the way we talk to students about planning, their goals, have an idea of where you want to get and have a very good sense of where you are so that you can bridge that gap and you can make those changes. So we do have inclusive access options. And then over time, you can migrate into more of an equitable access if you're not quite ready to just pull the Band-Aid off and jump right in. And I'll talk to you about a few schools who have done just that. So we are unique in the way that we bill for these services. So we are one low flat fee. It's predictable for students. It's not that unknown out-of-pocket cost that they show up at the bookstore and then find out what they need to acquire these books. It's one low flat fee. And we do not charge per credit hour. And this is important because there's a lot of materials that are free resources, OER. There's a lot of courses that don't have books required. So we're not charging for materials that you're not using. And that's really important. And there's some huge cost savings involved there as well. So the ownership of technology, again, we talked about this because we have that vertical integration. Everything is in one place. We fix it, we take care of it. We can keep the cost low to be able to do that because it's all done in-house. We own our platform. And with the OER, the same thing, we are able to host OER on our platform, which gives students the same experience as they would have with an ebook, and they have that same e-reader functionality, which is key. And this is a great way for schools to be able to reduce the overall cost per students. So Lee College was a school that was paying per credit hour. And we were able to work with them, and just in changing the model of how they were charging students has saved them over $500,000 per semester. So that's pretty significant and worth noting. So again, we're not charging for materials that aren't being used, and we're not charging for materials that are free. We have a platform fee for our OER to host it on our platform, to keep it all in one place, to have the data analytics, and to have the e-reader functionality. So it's a $6 per student for unlimited OER access. Now, Jackson College, this was an example of a school who needed to make a quick change. They were in a relationship, we call it an unhappy marriage with a big box store. Customer service was lacking. They weren't getting their books on time. They weren't happy with the overall process. They wanted what we call a quickie divorce from the big box store and a Vegas wedding to BibliU. So I love that analogy because it's showing you we can do this quickly. Of course, more time is always. We don't love doing this in 6 weeks, but that's what we did with Jackson College. So we did a correlation study with Jackson College in Michigan, and I am happy to share. I've got a 19-page in-depth study that we can certainly share with you for a little late night reading. But I will give you the Cliff Note version of it, and the big takeaways in this. Students at Jackson College found, and again, this was with a very quick implementation. So the turnaround time was about 6 weeks. Ideally 90 days would be preferable. But in a very short amount of time, they were able to get BibliU implemented, and it significantly impacted their students' experience. 60% increased their GPA. That's significant. And not only was it was increased on average by an entire grade point letter. So that's significant. It comes as no surprise that when students have access to their materials and they can afford it and it's easy to find, they are more likely to be successful. When they're more successful, they're much more likely to return. They're much more likely to persist and get that degree, get that certification, get those skills that they need, and do what they came there to do. So that early success is really important. And again, just to pause in case anyone has questions on that. Okay. So South Piedmont is a school, and this is a great example of OER usage and how they were able to increase their OER. OER is a big topic. There was a lot of conversations here at the conference in South Carolina, which was with technical schools, specifically for workforce development. OER is a big conversation. It's an important way it's a great way to reduce costs for students and to take advantage of free materials. Having said that, there's a lot of time spent searching around for the materials if it's not all in one place. And also, you want to make sure that it's good quality materials. So by being able to choose that OER ahead of time and host it on our platform, it makes it much easier for students to utilize these resources. South Piedmont Community College also found that their faculty was already producing a lot of OER that they didn't recognize was considered OER. They were just sort of doing it. They were pulling from different resources. They were recognizing that their books weren't all being used enough to spend $300 on a textbook. They were kind of picking and choosing pieces of it, and they were authoring their own OER. So as that conversation started to evolve, they were able to take advantage of the materials that they were creating. And Sam will show you on our demo some faculty authored OER that sits on the platform just like any other ebook, that gives them the same functionality as an e-reader experience, and it's free. So who doesn't love free? So here we talked about OER a little bit. One of the things that I will add to that is the ADA compliance. This is significant. I mean, it's a requirement. But when we go through the demo, and Sam will show you what that looks like. Some of the accessibility features that you just can't do with print books, but are pretty exciting to be able to do with digital. So that's something about OER that I would like to point out, is that ADA compliance. All right, questions on here?
I think we've done we've done quite a lot of the questions as we go along. Morgan and I said I'd cover some of the specific ones that are left out in the demo. Perfect.
Okay.
Team effort here.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? I came in a little late, but does this mean that you can get any book through your system, any textbook?
So the short answer to that, Denise, is yes, we have customers where we have 100% coverage. So we have relationships with 7,500 publishers. If a book does not exist digitally, you have the option to get the print through us. However, that gets flagged and you're welcome to switch it if you want. So yes, we can get to 100% coverage. However, some colleges switch basically text because it's not available digitally and they want the services provided with that.
Okay.
In terms of if you do want it on the BibliU platform and we're not a partner with them, then we just basically give you a pre-written letter that we ask you to sign, go to the publisher and say, yeah, we want this specific content for Alvin within our platform. And, you know, we pay them for it. So,
Oh, that's cool. And another question is specifically, you have a relationship with Cengage?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. But yeah, there's some books that just don't exist digitally, which sometimes are essential, like the mortuary science books I was looking at a while ago. But yeah, our coverage is typically 95% on the first run through, and then we work towards 100 because obviously you're going to need it all. And John, I just saw your question with OER. So OER falls into two main buckets. There's OER that's coming from libraries that already exist, like OpenStax or Project Gutenberg or some state libraries. And then they are, a lot of them are already within our platform. And then the other type of OER is anything that you author or that your faculty author, or in some cases, I'll talk about this later, that can be authored on the AI tool. But those are effectively uploaded into BibliU. And this is extremely important for if you've got workforce programs where we're speaking to folks in Louisiana at the minute. They're doing a lot with offshore wind, Pearson, Cengage, etc. They're great, but they haven't written a book on building offshore wind in a hurricane risk area. So the workforce partner provides the content that's then uploaded into BibliU if they chose to work with us.
Yeah, I have issues with specifically the physical sciences. You know, biology, A&P is well covered, but geology, oceanography, all these subjects, not a lot of OER content out there. So I guess I'm still trying to figure out your service, but I maybe the demo will help, and once I get a handle on that. But I obviously can find lots of textbooks with, you know, Pearson, Macmillan, what have you. So just wondering, how do you reduce those costs compared to if I still pick Pearson? Surely that's still going to be the same price, no?
Typically, so the answer with OER being difficult to find with some courses, yeah, we found that too, and we've built some AI tools that are currently out with only a small number of partners, and I wouldn't say that's what we focus on today because that's not what you do on day one. Like you perhaps do that in year two, but in terms of the Pearson content, the Cengage content, etc., we're typically slightly cheaper, and that's just because of our buying power. So we have 2 million students on the platform now. Phoenix, Appreciate, very different, but they made a significant difference because it was 100,000 students who came online in one go, and it's kind of us removing that middleman. Frankly, also we're like low cost, like in the sense that we've tried to make our processes as efficient as possible, our support tickets as low as possible, not just because that's a better user experience, but we have to have less people sat responding to them, like being totally candid.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I look forward to the demo. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Cool. Am I all right to get started on that, Morgan?
Yep.
Great. So correct me if any of this is wrong. I believe you use Blackboard. So this is an LTI environment for the purposes of this demo. Can you see my screen, by the way, Morgan?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, apologies. I'm actually at the Arkansas Community College's meeting today, so they kindly set me up in one of their office rooms. But this is so this here looks like a link. All right, this is like the most boring thing to look at and yet incredibly important, because this is why one of the reasons why Phoenix adopted us is it's a single LTI link. So when a student clicks on this link from within Blackboard, it effectively says, "Hi, I'm Sam. I'm in these course sections taught by this faculty member who has adopted these content items, and then they're launched into the e-reader. I think I'll show you it in full screen mode just because it's going to be a better viewing experience for you, but you can either have it open as an iframe like this, so within Blackboard, or you can have it open as a separate tab. But the important thing to note here is this is all publisher content. This is courseware, so anything with codes. And then this is an example of some OER that South Piedmont's put in. The important point here is that all of your stuff is in one place. And frankly, from the student's perspective, they don't care, as far as I'm aware, who authored the book or who published the book. Like whether it was published by Macmillan or whether it's OER, they care about the cost and the user experience. So by having it all in one place, this is what allowed South Piedmont to increase the amount of OER they're using quite significantly by double digits. In terms of what the experience is like, I don't want to feature drown you, and there's kind of a whole load of things I could show you, but I'll focus on the things that are most important and made a difference to me. And my old boss used to actually really hate me for saying this. So you can opt out of BibliU, and God bless the North American tipping system. I'd actually been parking cars for like a year and a half before I went to college, and the tips were good. And you know, they went straight in my pocket. So when I got to college, I was from an area that's so rural that if you live not too far up the road, you're born with mining rights. You can just go out into your backyard and start digging up coal. I wouldn't suggest that you do it. It's not particularly lucrative, but if you have an excavator and you live up the road, you can do that. Anyway, this was important to me because my experience with digital content prior to this was like have 101 logins, download Adobe, just like a clunky experience. And so the first year I took that cash and I went and bought my textbooks. I felt lucky to get into the college I did, and I just wanted to do well. The second year I didn't opt out, and I kind of hope to show you why that's the case in here. But the important thing with it being a single click into this is your students never have to create another login. This is like a seamless experience for them. And that's super important just from making this as easy as possible. I always tell the story that Morgan and I spend far too much of our lives in Hampton Inns. And I don't understand why every time I get to a Hampton, it takes me 15 minutes to learn how to use the TV remote. Like I'm staring at it like, why? So yes, we offer training for both students and faculty, but we're trying to make this as simple as possible. So when you're within here and you've got all your textbooks, these are the things that it's like, okay, I came on board second year. And what made the big difference? Apologies, I'm hotspotting off my phone, so if it's a little bit slow, work with it. But you can search when you make a search. So let's suppose I'm a chemistry student, or I'm going into oil and gas, and it's a workforce program, and I have to do some chemical elements studying. If I search acid, it will search across all of my content. You use optical character recognition to pick up the relevant figures here. The point being that it's like these are the way that students are searching around the internet the rest of the time. So let's make it super easy to search in the same way here. Let's then go and click into a specific book. And again, it's the same point of we're trying to make everything as easy as possible. So I was last reading this book up until this page. Great. Take me straight back to that page and have the accessibility settings exactly as I left them off. These are like little nuances that make a big difference, frankly. And, you know, Morgan and I think about e-textbooks a lot. It's all we do day to day. But frankly, if we can get to a point where your students literally don't think about accessing their e-textbooks and their course materials and can just get in, learn, and get on with their lives, that's kind of the aim, which is weird because, you know, as I said, this is all Morgan and I think about and talk about, but it got to a weird stage, right, where students enroll in a class and then maybe they get to week 2 having not bought the book, and then you realize, oh, this book's $200. What am I going to do now? And suddenly the big issue of the day is the textbook. Like, that feels wrong. So we're just trying to remove that so we can all focus on the things that, frankly, we want to in our lives. So we've got a whole load of features here. We've got notes, annotations, highlights. You can see here all the ones that I've made previously. But if you imagine a student and stretched over some print books, and I never wrote in mine because I did still want to sell them back at the end of the year, but you can still have all the same functionality, just in a way that's more searchable, more usable, frankly easier. We've got loads of other stuff like speed reader, text to speech, etc. Now, this is a real interesting one, because I'd say, and Morgan, please don't tell our boss this, but I'd definitely say I'm more of a stick guy than a carrot guy in terms of what I respond to. So particularly 10 years ago, you could have probably tried to sell me a $10 bill for $5, and I would have just been a bit suspicious of it and said, no, thanks, and gone and done my own thing. But the first year of college actually didn't go that well for me. And I came close to basically close to failing out. And so I spoke to some guys who I was living with at the time, and they were like, well, where did you lose all your marks? And I was like, we looked through the grade report and it was in referencing. And I didn't really know what referencing was. So we were like, okay. And they all got full marks. And I was like, well, how did you do it? And they basically come in here. So they'd search for their relevant term, find their piece of text, and then just grab their reference out of here, and it's done. That was their referencing done, full marks. This is extremely important if in the state of Texas, you're going to be paid based upon student outcomes. Everyone should be getting full marks on referencing. All of these tools already exist. Like, frankly, the guys who I lived with knew about these like tools existing at all because their siblings had used them. Because if you come from a privileged family, these tools already exist. So we're just trying to make them super easy to use, so every student's on the same footing. You can come in, just grab your reference and go. We've got text to speech. Does it sound like Morgan Freeman reading a book? No, it does not. Is it pretty good for a textbook? Yeah, it's pretty good. Phoenix asked us to build this 5 years ago, so while students were driving around, they could listen to their content, etc. You can download the book to read offline, and this is super important because a lot of our customers are rural community colleges, and actually, like, the internet connection. I was at Brazos Sport College the other day, and I pulled over not too far from you folks at Bucky's, and was still able to take the meeting in the car. So your connection's pretty stable everywhere, at least my experience. But we still want to give you a great offline experience for if your students are in a place where they don't have it. So that's it, kind of from a student's point of view within a specific book. The bit that I'd now show you is access codes. So this is courseware that is not integrated with Blackboard directly. This is access codes. And so what we do, I'll caveat all of this by saying, when a developer in Australia woke me up at 5 in the morning to be like, hey, Sam, look at what we've built, I was like, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen. Didn't get it when they first showed me. I was like, I don't understand what's so exciting about this. You've delivered a code. And it wasn't until I sat in a bookstore in Chattanooga for 3 hours, a guy who I was supposed to be meeting went to the wrong campus. He was like, oh, sorry, Sam, I went to the wrong campus. I was like, don't worry about it. All I've got planned is Cracker Barrel anyway. So I'll still be here if you're around later. And he was like, sure. But 3 students came into the store with a code that basically they'd lost in their backpack. And this is just a way of preventing lost codes and problems with codes. Carol, I just saw your question with how long do students have access to the book for? So the default is 180 days. In the adoptions tool, you select how long you want it for. We're a reseller, so you can select perpetual if you want. However, the cost is typically 30% more. When we first started doing this, everyone was selecting perpetual. And I'll show you the analytics in a minute that meant that basically outside of nursing, welding, and accounting, unless you know that student's going to need the book for like following terms, the best value is 180 day. However, we support whatever you choose to adopt in the adoptions tool, but the default is 180 days. We are effectively a reseller of the content. So we wrap it in a nice way, but if you need it perpetual because nursing students have the NCLEX or whatever, we can do that, but the default is 180 days. Yes, I saw your, oh, no problem, Carol. Happy to help. Let me know if I can help with anything else. And Harold, yeah, I saw your question about short terms, and this is super important because by having content integrated in this way, it means, let's suppose you're enrolled the day before class starts in the 8-week class. Literally, even if you live in downtown Manhattan, the only way that I'm aware of that you can get the book in time for the class starting is by providing it digitally in this kind of way, because it's then there in Blackboard on day one. So it's like, this has been super important for short courses. In terms of the OER, it's the same functionality that you have with the e-textbooks. So it should be totally indistinguishable between publisher content and OER. I will now go on to show you, oh, this is just a quite cool feature that we like. So we now have 2 million users with access to the platform. The amount of time that students spend reading on it is quite insane, kind of blows my mind when I see it. But we like to show that, you know, people sign long-term contracts with us. And what we show you today is we want to continue evolving and getting better. So we're constantly gathering feedback. We show everything that's in development and then everything that we've released sorted by time date, just to show you that, you know, this is like a long-term partnership as opposed to just us selling you something that will stagnate. We've got the support functionality here. Frankly, the number of support tickets is still very low, and it's one of the reasons that Phoenix chose to work with us, but it's there if you need it. I'll show you now just quickly the analytics, and there's like a lot here. There's almost too much. So for the purposes of this, let's suppose that you've just rolled this out. We're here on day one, and I'm not a guy who has sales in my title. I'm your customer support manager who's trying to help you get the most out of it. I think the most meaningful thing that I could show you is this, which basically shows you who's read what, when, and for how long. And you can come up here and just self-serve up the dates. But the reason that we provide this data is so if Morgan's struggling, clearly this is demo data, no one's reading for 9,000 hours, but if Morgan's struggling and I'm struggling, if I haven't read at all and Morgan's read a lot, it's just a very different conversation. And so that's kind of the first thing that we point you towards. And it's just because it gives some context to, like, yeah, we sell tech, but behind all of this, there's a human. So it's like, okay, I haven't read, maybe that's like because I'm lazy, or maybe it's because I was in a car accident. And it's just giving you that information so you have context to it. So I love that. It's why a lot of schools choose to work with us. But that's kind of what I'd show you on day one. We've spoken a lot about OER, and I think OER is super important. And we are totally publisher agnostic in that whatever content you decide to make available, we will basically get for you. And if you want OER, we'll make it available. But let's suppose you've got two sections and the students perform equally well. Great. Well, okay, one of them's using publisher content and one of them's using OER. You already have enough to think maybe we should be using OER across the whole thing. And again, we never tell you what to use. We just want to give you the information so you can make an informed decision. But here's all the adoptions at this demo school. And we then generate these heat maps so you can see which bits of the book are really being engaged in. Now, this book's actually pretty good because it's got stuff throughout. But if that was grey across the whole thing, like from chapter 3 down, well, you only needed the first 3 chapters. And maybe that's fine. Maybe there was enough value in those first 3 chapters that that's what you needed. But we want to give you the information so you can make those informed decisions on which content you're using. So they're the 2 pieces of analytics that I'd show you, starting with it today. Schools that are into year 2, year 3 with us will typically take our data feed via API and plug it into predictive analytic reports to say, okay, Sam has not opened his book by week 2, therefore nudge him. And we think there's an 8% increased chance, whatever the output is, that he will not be retained into next year. So if you have people working in student success counselors, they'd typically be given access to that data. And I think it's, from the student's point of view, it's all the rich features. From the institution's point of view, it's like, how can we ensure that our students are meeting their potential, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's important for the way colleges are going to be funded. So they're the two things that I'd look at in terms of analytics. And I know, look, we talked a lot about OER and sources for OER authoring, etc., etc. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, because this is not where you'd start on day one. But once you've got set up with us, and once you're like feeling comfortable, there are two things. Well, it's only actually at a limited number of customers now, but I'll share it with you anyway, because I've worked on it, and I'm kind of, it's been the coolest 12 months, in the sense that, so the AI tool, what it is if you want, at the moment, you have to upload your own OER or select from our repositories. But the tool that we've built basically allows you to import your learning outcomes. It will then generate content, which is effectively like chapters of textbooks. You can come in and edit that. We can't allow editing of publisher textbooks just because they're in protected files in our database that come from the publishers. They wouldn't allow us to do it. But if it's OER, it's content that you're authoring, so you import your learning outcomes, click generate, it generates the OER for you. You can then edit it. Great. However, courseware, so I'm talking about like interactive publisher stuff. Some of it is great, some of it is really good, and it's like worth the money and it makes sense. Great, we're here to support that. Some of it's less good. So with that OER, you can basically hit generate, and it will generate what is effectively a load of quiz questions on that for your students to interact with. The point being that what we show you today is effectively low cost day one access and all the analytics, etc. But I share this with you knowing that in year 2, in year 3, I really hope through like continued conversations with Morgan that we'd be able to roll out some of those other types of projects with faculty who want to choose to adopt it early. Again, we're here to make your lives easier, and we'd never tell you what to adopt, what to use in your classes. I've never taught a class, and frankly, I don't think I ever should. But if you think it could work for you, then that's what we've built. Do you have any questions on the demo specifically? That's all I've got for you. And tell me if you think that we have wasted the last 11 years of our life too. If it's no good and you've seen way better stuff out there, we also need to know so we can go and improve, because my mortgage is 35 years, so I'm going to be around on it for a while. Cool. Morgan, did you have anything? Did I miss anything that I should have covered?
No, I think you hit everything. I was just reading through the questions to make sure we answered everybody's questions. I think we were able to do that. Yeah. And Harold, did Sam answer your question about customizing the content in the text, being that if it's, there's obviously more room to do that in OER than there is. But I think you answered that, Sam.
Yeah, basically we can't, being totally candid with you, Harold, we can't edit the publisher content. And yeah, I've in like the time I've spent here, I've spent a bunch of time in like the different departments, and I found the publisher relationships one of the more challenging, because yeah, I thought it'd be really great to be able to do stuff like that. And if you sign up for long-term adoptions with publishers, some schools that I've worked with do have custom books, but it's like a lot of back and forth, and then they basically, so we can do it, but it's like an ad hoc type thing, and I couldn't promise it to you on this school. Right, yeah, Carol, it's that's a great question. So what makes us different to the other vendors? In terms of access, let me share my screen again. And by the way, this is all based upon like customer feedback, and I've bought books from the other providers because we only sell to colleges. So when I've gone and like I bought a book from another provider through an e-commerce store, but one thing that makes a big difference is this single click. So you never have to create an account that's on the Vital Source bookshelf or on the Red Shelf bookshelf, etc. Like this is just a single click. When I click on that, it says, "Hi, I'm Sam Holding. If I don't have an account, create one. If I do have an account, log me in." So that's like a big difference in terms of making it seamless. In terms of OER, I believe that Vital Source supports the upload of OER, but I don't know that they have access to existing repositories. Tell me if that's untrue, but we're slightly different in that we allow for that we have both. And then in addition to that, the AI authoring tool that, granted, that's not what we're talking about today, but aside from being the right thing to do, I also think it's a point of differentiation. And I should be totally clear that Phoenix took a bet on us when we were a company of 30 people versus the 250 we are now, and we beat out both of these two. And it was pretty rigorously tested. Our instructor resource, sorry, Deborah, I just got slightly distracted. I'll just finish the first question, but I will come back to that. The analytics available through the others. Yeah, I actually haven't seen that they are in the same way, particularly the API. So in terms of seeing who's read what, when, for how long, I didn't know that you actually could get that through the other vendors. But even if you could, I know that they don't have the API, which is important for if you're ever doing predictive analytics projects, plugging it in elsewhere. But yeah, I actually didn't think that they did have that. Accessibility, everyone should do that. If they're not doing it, that's frankly not good enough. So yeah, they should. I mean, we should all be as accessible as possible. What I will show you is that we paid a third party to audit us, and I do this a bit to kind of show off, but they so we pay them to conduct an accessibility report, and we scored pretty well on it. And then if you want to read the specifics here, you can, but it's something that's extremely important to us, and we've done that in our instructor resources available with ebooks. So Deborah, these like the stuff that get provided alongside when you adopt a book via Pearson or whoever, is that what you're referring to? Like the PowerPoints, etc.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so they are still delivered by, like, in the same way they are now. They are not delivered via BibliU, but basically through the publisher rep directly to you. They're incentivized to do that because although your students aren't paying them directly, frankly, most of the money that gets paid to us gets paid back out to publishers. Like, we operate on fairly small margins, and all the publisher reps still get paid. So you still get those resources, but they're not delivered through BibliU. They're delivered in the same way you currently get them.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And you can tell me if this is untrue as well, but I believe also a big difference between us and Red Shelf is Red Shelf's adoption process a Google Sheet. I've been at a couple of colleges where they've had a Red Shelf Google Sheet passed around where you just type in ISBN and then the book name. Ours is not that. Ours is a portal that looks kind of like if you were going on Amazon or wherever, and you just go in and select your content. It will then show you whether it's live in Blackboard. So that is quite different. Like, I don't think you can run these projects at scale and deliver a good customer service without that. But all of these little things, while we're here, I think of it like a triangle. So on one side of it's Blackboard, the other bit's where you adopt, and the other bit's the student interface. But Oh no, that's okay. Thanks very much, Carol. Appreciate it. But by having this triangle here with everything connected, and the fact that we don't sell directly to students, we sell through you, is what makes it such a seamless experience. Because you adopt the book, we now know that that book is associated with that course section taught by this faculty member, and we're integrated with Blackboard, and we know which students are in which course sections. So that kind of triangle there means that you adopt a book and then it's live for the students, right? And it's like no one had to create another account and it didn't get messy. So we were fortunate in that we just so happened to set ourselves up for this. I think a lot of it was from about 7 years ago was luck, to be frank, and then we've kind of kept doubling down where it's like schools have been like, yep, we want this. You know, if a book's a nice to have as opposed to essential, it's a lot of money to stick to a student if they don't need it or if it's not particularly useful. So that's why this model seems to work quite well. And yeah, there's a few of us now at BibliU who used it as a student who work here. And actually, Ginny, who's our colleague, her daughter was taking a few credits at Phoenix just to help upskill herself, and it's quite funny. She I was around their house and she was like, "Hey, look, you can buy me a pizza tonight because I guess I'm paying your mortgage." And I was like, "Yeah, thank you very much, Claire Connors." But yeah, she's great, and we can send you out if you want to try the books. We have demo accounts, etc. Actually, the best reference point on that, Iowa Western, so Council Bluffs, they rolled us out really slowly, and they rigorously tested us at each stage. And they took a sample of 200 students, and 98% of them said that they wanted it rolled out across all their classes. You know, I was still a bit disappointed to have missed the 2%, but according to Dan Kinney, who runs the college, he was like, "Sam, you're never going to get that because kids like you would have hit no." And I'm like, yeah, this is actually a record for them. So that was cool. And they're a great example of someone who's kind of tested it rigorously. But we also, you know, prompt your students for feedback, not so much that it's annoying, but just intermittently, so we can provide, like the vice president of academic affairs, typically with a report at the end of each year saying like, this is what we said we'd do, this is what we've done, this is how happy or not happy your students are with it. And yeah, that's been pretty cool. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. And I think we're doing pretty well on time, 11:48. I think, Keith, if you're there.
I'm here. Yeah, the session, the next round of sessions starts at 10:55. So I guess we will wrap things up here. Thank you so much for taking your time today to speak to us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
And for those who want to revisit the presentation, the recording will be shortly, very soon posted on the conference website or conference webpage on the ACC website.
And likewise, if people have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Sam and myself. We're happy to answer those and further the conversation.
Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we can, our colleague's son Chris is a coach with the Texans, so we've all become Texans fans now. And congratulations on getting so far through it as well. That was cool. So yeah, we are all swagged up and are down fairly regularly, so perhaps we can see you around then and grab lunch or dinner or something. But appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you
Thank y'all.
again.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.